My name is Beatrice Harlow, and at 61 years old, I never thought I'd be floating face up in the icy waters of Lake Winnipesaukee, pretending to be dead, while my own daughter and her husband plotted how to cash in on my life insurance. The October chills seeped into my bones like a thief in the night, numbing my fingers and toes as I forced my breaths to come slow and shallow, barely rippling the surface. Their voices carried across the gentle waves, Emily's sharp, bitter laugh slicing through the air like a knife, Ryan's low, calculating murmur tallying up the dollars from my policy. That's when the full horror washed over me, colder than the lake itself. My sweet Emily, the girl I raised through scraped knees, teenage heartbreaks, and a father's untimely death, had drowned her cousin Tessa 22 years ago, right here in this cursed cove. Not an accident, as we'd all believed, but a deliberate push to silence a secret that could have unraveled everything. And now they were repeating the nightmare with me. One wrong move, one desperate gasp for air, and I joined Tessa at the bottom, my body lost in the depths. But if I held still, if I played this deadly charade just a little longer, I could turn their whispered confessions into ironclad evidence and make sure they paid for every lie, every betrayal, with the rest of their lives behind bars. It all started unraveling 6 months earlier in the quiet thaw of a New England spring. Wolfeboro, New Hampshire is one of those postcard-perfect towns tucked along the eastern shore of Lake Winnipesaukee, a sprawling body of water that stretches over 70 square miles, dotted with pine-covered islands and ringed by mountains that turn fiery orange in the fall. I'd lived in my cozy colonial cottage there for over 40 years, ever since Thomas and I bought it as newlyweds. The house was a 2-story clapboard affair with a wraparound porch, creaky wooden floors, and windows that framed the lake like living paintings. Thomas, my husband, had been a commercial fisherman, out on the water before dawn, coming home with stories of monster bass and stormy squalls. He died too young, a massive heart attack at 50, leaving me to raise our daughter Emily alone. I'd thrown myself into my job as the town librarian, surrounding myself with books that offered escapes from the grief. The smell of aged paper and fresh brewed coffee in the Wolfeboro Public Library became my sanctuary, a place where I could lose myself in other people's stories while piecing together my own shattered life. My pension from the state was modest, about $3,000 a month, but I'd been careful with money. Thomas and I had paid off the mortgage early, and with savings tucked away in CDs and a small investment portfolio, my net worth sat comfortably around $250,000. It wasn't riches, but it was security, enough for a quiet retirement, maybe a trip to see the Grand Canyon or to spoil my granddaughters with college funds. Emily was my pride and joy, the light that kept me going after Thomas. Born when I was 25, she had his unruly dark curls and my hazel eyes, a combination that made her the center of attention at family gatherings. Growing up, she was the apple of everyone's eye, the star of the local ballet recitals, the captain of the high school debate team, always with a quick wit and an infectious laugh. She met Ryan in college at Boston University, where she studied marketing. He was older, a real estate agent with a slick charm and a wardrobe full of pressed shirts. They married 5 years ago in a small ceremony on our lakeside dock, with the sun setting over the water and fireflies dancing in the twilight. Soon came Lily, now 6, with her mother's curls and a passion for drawing unicorns on every scrap of paper she could find. And Rose, 4, a whirlwind of energy who could talk your ear off about her favorite cartoons. Family life felt complete during our gatherings. Thanksgiving dinners with roasted turkey and cranberry sauce from the local farm, Christmas mornings unwrapping presents under a tree we'd cut ourselves, summers filled with barbecues on the deck, hamburgers sizzling on the grill, corn on the cob dripping with butter, potato salad from my grandmother's recipe passed down through generations. Ryan would man the grill, cracking jokes about the Red Sox's latest loss, while Emily helped me in the kitchen, chopping onions and sharing gossip from her job as a freelance marketer. "Mom, you're the heart of this family," she'd say, hugging me with that familiar scent of lavender from her favorite shampoo. "We couldn't do any of this without you." But lately, the hugs felt tighter, the visits more frequent, and the conversations laced with an undercurrent I couldn't quite place. It began with the money. One crisp April morning, I sat at my oak kitchen table, the same one where Thomas and I had shared countless breakfasts of pancakes and black coffee, reviewing my bank statements. The table was scarred from years of use, a testament to family life. Sunlight streamed through the window, glinting off the lake outside, but my mood darkened as I spotted the discrepancies. $50 withdrawn from an ATM in Manchester, where Emily and Ryan lived. $75 charged to my credit card for online retail. $100 transferred to an account I didn't recognize. At first, I dismissed it as my own forgetfulness. After all, at 61, the mind starts to play tricks, right? A missed grocery run, perhaps a subscription I'd forgotten. But then a $2,000 wire transfer appeared, labeled Family Assistance, and my heart plummeted. I logged into my online banking portal, something Emily had set up for me years ago, insisting it was so much easier than those paper statements, Mom. With trembling fingers, I traced the login history. The IP addresses led straight to Emily's home. My stomach twisted as I dialed her number. "Emily, honey, there's been some strange activity on my accounts. Have you been accessing them?" There was a pause on the line. Then her voice came through, light and breezy as ever. "Mom? Oh, gosh, it must be a glitch. Banks are always messing up with that online stuff. Let Ryan take a look. He deals with finances all day in real estate." But I pressed. "No, Emily, the transfers. They look like they've come from your end. If you needed money, you could have asked." Another pause, longer this time. "Okay, fine," she sighed, her tone shifting to that mix of defensiveness and charm she perfected as a teenager. "We borrowed a little. Ryan's commissions have been down with the housing market slump, and the girls' private preschool costs a fortune. Tuition, uniforms, field trips. We'll pay it back next month, I promise. It's just temporary." Borrowed? The word echoed in my mind like a slap. This wasn't borrowing. It was identity theft. She'd used my social security number, my birth date as a password, personal details I'd shared innocently over family dinners. I felt a wave of betrayal crash over me, as cold as the lake in winter. But call the police on my own daughter? The thought was unbearable. Instead, I drove to the local credit union, where Clara Thompson, my financial advisor, waited with her no-nonsense Boston accent and a stack of printouts. Clara was in her mid-50s, with a practical bob haircut and glasses that magnified her sharp eyes. She whistled low as she scanned the documents. "Beatrice, this ain't no borrow, it's systematic siphoning. Nearly $15,000 over the past year, in dribs and drabs to avoid red flags. You need to freeze your accounts, change everything, and maybe talk to a lawyer." That night, as rain pattered against the windows and the loons called mournfully across the lake, I lay awake in the bed Thomas and I had shared for so long. The sheets still smelled faintly of his cologne, even after all these years. How could Emily do this? My mind raced back to her childhood, searching for signs. She'd always been impulsive, sneaking cookies before dinner, borrowing my makeup as a teen, but nothing like this. Desperation, Clara had said. Real estate's a roller coaster. They might be drowning in debt. I resolved to dig deeper, starting with locking down my finances. New passwords, two-factor authentication, alerts on every transaction. But the doubt had taken root like weeds in my garden. The next clue came a week later while cleaning the attic. A dusty space filled with boxes of old clothes, Thomas's fishing rods leaning in the corner like silent sentinels, and holiday decorations wrapped in newspaper. I pulled out a forgotten photo album, its leather cover cracked with age. Dust motes danced in the slanting sunlight as I flipped through the pages, a bittersweet trip down memory lane. Baby Emily in her high chair smeared with birthday cake, Thomas teaching her to bait a hook on the dock, his patient smile captured forever. Family reunions at the lake, everyone gathered around picnic tables laden with hot dogs, burgers, and my famous apple pie. One page stopped me cold. Emily and her cousin Tessa, arms linked on the dock, grinning at the camera with gap-toothed smiles. Tessa was my sister Harriet's daughter, 12 that summer, with freckles across her nose and a ponytail that bobbed like a metronome when she ran. They were inseparable, those two, chasing fireflies, swimming in the shallows, whispering secrets under the stars. The summer of 2003 was sweltering, the air thick with humidity that clung to your skin like a second layer. We'd rented a rustic cabin on the lake for the family reunion. Log walls, a stone fireplace crackling at night, and a long wooden dock extending into the water like an invitation. Harriet and her husband Bob arrived in their old station wagon, packed to the brim with coolers, fishing gear, and Tessa's collection of stuffed animals. "Aunt Beatrice," Tessa squealed, launching herself into my arms as soon as they pulled up. She was all energy, her freckles dancing as she grinned, ponytail swinging. Emily, 13 and on the cusp of teenage awkwardness, grabbed her cousin's hand. "Come on, Tessa, let's go skip stones." The adults, me, Thomas, Harriet, Bob, and my mother, set up for the barbecue. Steaks and burgers sizzled on the grill, smoke curling lazily into the blue sky. Thomas flipped the meat with expert flips, his flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows. "This is what life's about," he said, winking at me. "Family, food, and the lake." Laughter echoed as the kids ran around, their bare feet thumping on the grass. Emily and Tessa were thick as thieves, building sandcastles on the shore and giggling over inside jokes. But there were tensions bubbling under the surface. My mother reported $200 missing from her purse one morning, cash she'd brought for the trip. "It was right here in my bag," she fretted, rummaging through her things in the cabin's kitchen, where sunlight streamed through the windows onto the worn linoleum floor. "Must be a thief around the campground." We searched, but found nothing, assuming it was lost or stolen by a passerby. Tessa, ever the observant one, pulled me aside later that day. "Aunt B, I think Emily took it. I saw her sneaking around Graham's room." Her eyes were wide, serious beyond her years. I'd brushed it off with a laugh. "Oh, honey, Emily wouldn't do that. It's probably just misplaced." But Tessa's words stuck with me, a nagging itch. The boat outing was the highlight of the trip. The kids begged for it, and Thomas obliged, captaining our old speedboat, a reliable craft with peeling blue paint and seats worn from years of use. Emily and Tessa climbed into the bow, life jackets buckled tight, their laughter carrying over the engine's rumble as we pulled away from the dock. The lake was glassy at first, islands passing by like green sentinels. Governor's Island, Rattlesnake Island, their pines whispering in the breeze. "Hold on tight," Thomas called from the wheel, his hands steady as ever. Then the storm rolled in fast, dark clouds swallowing the sun, wind whipping the water into choppy waves. The boat rocked, spray splashing over the sides. I gripped the rail, heart pounding. Emily and Tessa were arguing in the bow, Tessa's voice rising sharp. "You're a thief, Emily. I saw you take Graham's money. I'm telling everyone." Emily's face twisted in anger, her curls whipping in the wind. "Shut up, Tessa! You don't know anything!" Then, in a blur, Emily shoved her cousin hard. Tessa teetered on the edge, arms flailing, eyes wide with shock. "Emily, no!" she cried, before tumbling over the side with a splash. "Man overboard," Thomas shouted, cutting the engine and throwing a life ring. We circled frantically, shouting Tessa's name as rain pelted down. The waves swallowed her cries. Hours later, the Coast Guard joined, their lights cutting through the dusk. Her body washed ashore the next morning, battered by the rocks. The police called it a tragic accident. Kids roughhousing in bad weather, a slip on the wet deck. Emily sobbed in my arms at the funeral, her body shaking. "It was an accident, Mom. We were just playing, and she slipped." I held her tight, my own tears mixing with hers, never suspecting the truth hidden in her eyes. Harriet was devastated, her face etched with grief that aged her overnight. "My baby," she whispered at the graveside, clutching Bob's arm. She died 3 years later from diabetes complications, but I always knew it was a broken heart that took her. Back in the present, that loose photo from the album slipped out as I sat in the attic, the past crashing over me. It showed Emily and Tessa arguing on the dock, Tessa pointing accusingly. On the back, in Tessa's childish scrawl, Emily's secret. She took the money from Graham's purse. Gonna tell. My hand shook. Could Tessa have confronted Emily on the boat? Was the accident no accident at all? The doubt gnawed at me like a persistent fog off the lake. I started digging. First, I called old family friends from that summer. Aunt Louise, now in a retirement home in Concord, sighed over the phone. Poor Tessa. Emily was so upset at the funeral, but she didn't cry much, did she? Always seemed a bit off after that. Then I requested the original police report from the Belknap County Archives. It arrived in a thick manila envelope, pages yellowed with time. Inconsistencies jumped out. Emily's story shifted from she slipped on a wet spot to she jumped in on a dare. Witnesses noted the girls arguing earlier about money. And there was Ryan's name, listed as an 18-year-old lifeguard from a nearby summer camp who assisted in the search but found nothing. But when I'd asked Ryan how he met Emily, he'd said a college party in Boston. Why lie about knowing her back then? The pieces fit like a puzzle I didn't want to complete. Emily had stolen the money as a kid, Tessa threatened to tell, and Emily pushed her to silence her. Ryan, the lifeguard, helped cover it up. Perhaps that's how they really met, bonded over the secret. And now, 22 years later, they were draining my pension, pushing for control of my assets? Why? Desperation again. Ryan's real estate business was floundering. I'd overheard him on the phone during a visit, arguing with creditors about missed payments. The visits ramped up, each one feeling more like an interrogation. Emily showed up one afternoon with a bottle of wine and takeout from Giovanni's Italian in town. Pasta primavera, garlic bread, my favorites. "Mom, we've been thinking," she said, setting the table with that practiced smile. "You're not as young as you used to be. This house is big. The maintenance. Maybe it's time for assisted living. We could sell it. Lakefront properties are fetching top dollar now." Ryan nodded, his eyes sweeping the room like he was appraising it for a listing. "Yeah, Beatrice, Zillow has it at over $400,000. You'd have a nice cushion and we'd manage the funds. Just sign power of attorney. Makes everything easier if, God forbid, something happens." Their words sent a chill down my spine, colder than a January dip in the lake. I pretended to consider it, nodding along, but inside, alarms blared. That night, I confided in Clara over coffee at the local diner, the one with vinyl booths and bottomless mugs. "They're circling like sharks," she said, stirring her cream. Protect yourself, Bea. Update your will. Get evidence. We did just that. At the lawyer's office in town, a small firm with views of the town green, I revised my will. Everything in a trust for Lillian Rose, with my nephew, Harriet's son, now a lawyer himself, as executor. No direct access for Emily or Ryan. I also bought a waterproof phone case and a tiny digital recorder, hiding them in my purse. Paranoia? Clara asked. I shook my head. Preparation. New England winters teach you that. Emily's calls became insistent. Mom, let's do a family boat trip, like when I was a kid. Rent a pontoon, pack a picnic, the girls would love it. Memories of Tessa made my stomach lurch, but refusing might tip them off. Sure, honey. Sounds lovely. A few days before the trip, as I packed sandwiches in the kitchen, another memory surfaced. It was the night after Tessa's funeral, the house heavy with silence. Emily, 13 and pale, sat at the kitchen table, picking at her dinner. Mac and cheese, her favorite, but untouched. Thomas was out on the lake, clearing his head, he said, but I knew he blamed himself for captaining the boat. I sat beside her, stroking her hair. Sweetie, it's okay to talk about it. She looked up, eyes dry. Mom, it was an accident. We were fighting about stupid stuff. Graham's money. She accused me of taking it, but I didn't. Then the wave hit, and she slipped. Her voice cracked just enough to seem genuine. I hugged her, whispering comforts, never questioning. But now, hindsight painted it differently. The dry eyes, the quick story changes. Had she been practicing her lies even then? The day of the boat trip arrived, October 15th, with a crisp blue sky mocking the storm brewing in my heart. At the marina, the air smelled of crine and diesel, boats bobbing gently. Lily and Rose bounced in excitement, their life jackets puffy and bright. "Grandma, can we see fish?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. "Of course, sweetie," I said, forcing a smile as Ryan loaded the cooler. Ham sandwiches, apples, sodas. Emily hugged me. "This is going to be perfect, Mom, just like old times." We motored out on the rented pontoon, a stable craft with canopy shade and cushioned seats. Wind whipped my hair as we passed the islands, the water sparkling like diamonds. The girls trailed their hands in the spray, giggling. But Ryan steered us to that deep cove, the same one where Tessa had vanished. My pulse quickened. Engine off, we bobbed. Ryan pulled out a flask. Toast to family. The drink tasted bitter, metallic, drugged, I suspected. I pretended to sip, palming my phone under the seat cushion and hitting record. The girls napped below deck after lunch. Ryan adjusted the anchor, rocking the boat violently. Water sloshed over. "Careful!" I gripped the rail, heart hammering. Emily's smile turned cold. "Mom, remember Tessa? Such a tragedy." "Why bring her up now?" Ryan chuckled darkly. "Because history has a way of repeating itself. Lakes can be so unforgiving." In a flash, Emily lunged, grabbing my arms. "Sorry, Mom, but we need the insurance payout. You're worth $500,000 dead, more than alive." Ryan joined her, shoving hard. I tumbled overboard, the cold water shocking my system like electricity. Instinct screamed to fight to swim, but I remembered Henry's whisper from that story I'd read once. Play dead. I floated face up, eyes closed, breathing imperceptibly. "Is she gone?" Ryan's voice carried. Emily laughed bitterly. "Yes, finally. Just like Tessa. She caught me stealing Graham's money that summer, threatened to tell everyone. I had to push her, silence her. You helped cover it as the lifeguard who couldn't find her, remember? That's how we really met, not that college lie." Ryan grunted. Yeah, and now the pension's nearly drained, $15,000 gone to cover our debts. But the life insurance? $500,000 straight to us. The will changed to that trust, but an accident bypasses it. No more questions about money. Their confessions poured out, my phone capturing every damning word as they thought me drowned. Satisfied, they started the engine and motored away to call for help, leaving me in the silence. As I floated, another memory engulfed me. The search for Tessa. The Coast Guard boats slicing through the rain, their sirens wailing. Thomas at the helm, face grim, shouting her name until his voice hoarsed. Harriet on shore, wrapped in a blanket, rocking back and forth. My baby, my baby. Emily beside me, her hand in mine, but her grip too tight, her eyes too dry. Strength ebbing, I swam slowly to a hidden cove, limbs aching from the cold. Collapsing on the rocky shore, I flagged down a passing fisherman, an old-timer named Joe in a battered John boat. "Lady, you look half drowned. What happened?" "Call the police," I gasped, handing him my phone. "It's all recorded." The cops arrived in a flurry. Detective Maria Ramirez, a tough Latina woman with a no BS demeanor, listened to the recording in her squad car. "This is gold, Mrs. Harlow. Confessions to theft, murder, we'll nail 'em." Emily and Ryan were arrested at the marina, still playing the grieving family. "What? Mom's alive?" Emily's shock turned to hysteria as handcuffs clicked. The trial was a media circus, headlines screaming, "Lake Murder Betrayal" in the Boston Globe. I testified, voice steady, recounting every detail, the flashbacks playing like a film in my mind. The jury deliberated 2 days before guilty verdicts. Life for Emily on murder and attempted murder. Same for Ryan as accomplice. Now, a year later, I have custody of Lily and Rose. We live in the cottage, breaking the cycle of secrets. Mornings, we watch the sunrise over the lake. No echoes left but the loon's calls. The water holds memories, but we've reclaimed them with truth, love, and no more lies. And if this story has touched you, dear listener, don't let it end here. Hit subscribe and like. Take a moment today to reach out to your loved ones. Call them, hug them, share your truths before secrets build walls. Because family isn't just blood, it's the trust we nurture every day. Act now. Rebuild those bonds before it's too late.